Welcome to r/askreddit. Serious now. When was the time you legitimately thought you were going to die? Serious replies only. Caught neurovirus a few years ago. I didn't realize how bad it could be before it struck. No fluids would stay in me for more than a few seconds. I ended up really dehydrated almost overnight. Like, if you pushed on my skin, it would stay sunk. I couldn't move, or any muscles would fully cramp. Legs, jaw, arms, abs, all of them. I didn't think I would survive. At the very least, thought my heart would cramp. But I got over it after 5 or 6 days. I can totally see how it kills old people though. If I was any less averagely healthy as an adult male, I'm sure I'd be dead. This happened about 4 or 5 months ago. I was home alone, eating steak-tipped kebabs for dinner. My wife was at work and due home in about an hour. I choked on one of the pieces of steak. Chew thoroughly, people. At first I thought I just needed to swallow harder. Bad idea, as now it was firmly lodged in my throat. I tried coughing it up, punching myself in the stomach, and pulling it out with my hand, none of which helped. I then ran over to the kitchen and tried to wash it down with some water. The water just sat in a pool in my mouth. My throat was completely blocked. At this point I contemplated calling 911, but I knew I'd be long dead before they arrived. The thought of my wife, we just celebrated our first anniversary and recently decided to start trying to conceive, coming home to find my dead body was by far the scariest part. I remember looking at my cats, but they just stared at me, confused at my odd behavior. Eventually I reached what felt like my whole hand down my throat and pulled out a chunk of obstruction out. This loosened it enough to let me cough out the remainder. I was so close to passing out. Vomit everywhere. Total time in throat around 90 seconds. I couldn't talk for a day due to the physical trauma on my throat. Drove myself to the hospital, cried in front of my wife when I saw her. The next few days were surreal. It was like I was living in an alternate timeline. I don't find choking gags in movies or TV amusing anymore. Still have mild PTSD about it. My third round with double pneumonia. Put into isolation and round-the-clock oxygen. There's just something about such severe oxygen deprivation that you get dizzy and hack up a lung just crossing a room to pick up a book that makes you certain that end is near. My lungs shut down during chemo. Allergy to one of the chemo drugs. And yeah, not being able to breathe or catch your breath is terrifying. Even when your care is amazing like mine was in ICU. My lung capacity has reduced quite a bit since, but I can exercise still, so I consider myself lucky. A couple of friends and I were driving home from a birthday party. We got rear-ended by a drunk driver who was going about 120. On impact, all the windows exploded, and the tires caved inward, and we were going about 70, so there was some sort of slingshot effect that made us pick up speed. We were just careening down the freeway with zero control. The car swerved around a bunch, almost hits another car and a pole, and eventually rolled into an area just right of the shoulder. Luckily, it ended up back upright on the tires and somehow ended up facing the complete opposite direction we were initially going. We thought our friend in the back seat was dead, but she was just unconscious and ended up having some pretty bad whiplash. My other friend and I were basically unharmed except for some cuts and bruises, and just overall body ache for a little bit. This was in 2007, and I still think about it pretty frequently. We all probably should have died for sure. Woke up immediately wide awake in the middle of the night without moving, and the hair standing up on the back of my neck because my now ex-wife was standing in our bedroom holding a large kitchen knife and staring at my feet. She had had a schizophrenic break a few months earlier, and had started referring to me as the enemy. I laid there without moving. She stood there for over an hour. I have no idea how long she was there before I woke up. Anyway, she leaves the room and comes back without the knife, gets into bed and cuddles in little spoon style, like she made a decision. Then she made me waffles for breakfast. Best believe I put on my best, "Oh wow, amazing wife. These waffles are yum" voice. This is absolutely terrifying. One time I woke up in the middle of the night with a stomach ache, so I went to the bathroom and defecated wildly for a while. Then I went into a cold sweat and my hearing and vision started to blur and muffle. I called for my mom, but I couldn't quite hear myself. Then everything went black, and I couldn't really hear anything, but I was still awake, so that wasn't cool. Then my mom, she heard me, as I did successfully yell for her, gave me a bowl and I threw up a completely clear liquid with the appearance and viscosity of corn syrup. This all happened over the course of like 30 minutes, and I woke up fine that morning. When it was happening, I thought I was gonna die, and afterward I assumed it was food poisoning or something. Apparently, most of what I just described is not consistent with food poisoning though. Cheers. You're about to faint. Same exact symptoms as fainting spells. I once fainted 6 times in one night. Same story, same symptoms. Honestly, surprised I didn't go to the hospital, considering I can guarantee you weren't hydrated and had a stomach bug. Look up your vagus nerve. and vasovagal syncope. I was really sick when I was 12. Missed a whole semester of school. I was throwing up every day and had no energy. Doctors couldn't figure it out. Had test after test, visited specialist after specialist, and nothing. All we did know is my liver wasn't functioning. I was pretty jaundiced. I was pretty sure I would die before we knew what was wrong. It's hard to explain, but I came to terms with it. Like, I was more comfortable with death as a concept when I was 12 than I am now at 25. Turns out it was my gallbladder. They had checked it for gallstones early on, but that wasn't the issue. My particular malfunction didn't show up on an ultrasound. The bile duct in my stomach didn't form correctly from birth, and it was hindering complete bile drainage, leading to sepsis in my gallbladder/liver. One surgery and 2 weeks bed rest, and I was back to normal. Edit. Well, golly. To answer the most common question, I got referred to a pediatric gastroenterologist who decided to order the HIDA scan you all keep referring. The barium milkshake thing you have to drink is absolutely disgusting. That indeed caught it. Why my local physicians didn't order me one is beyond me. I'm not a doctor and was 12. I do know that one doctor didn't even want to ultrasound for gallstones because I was too young to have gallstones. When I was taken hostage in Iraq and held for over 2.5 years, the 4 other people captured with me were killed. I was the only one who made it out alive. Summer of 2015, after I had a 6-hour surgery to remove a tumor. When I woke up and they took the mask off of me, I was in so much pain and felt like I couldn't breathe. Back in July, I was riding my motorcycle and was turning into my driveway. A girl came from behind me around a sharp turn and T-boned me. She was going at least 60 miles an hour until a couple seconds before impact when she hit her brakes. She hit me because she was either texting or playing around with something in her car. Either way, she wasn't paying attention. I remember hearing tires screeching and seeing the car half a second before impact, then everything went black. I broke the windshield with my head, broke the mirror with my hip, then landed face first on the road. I do remember being scared because I wasn't sure if there were more cars, so adrenaline kicked in, and I caught myself with my hands and knees, and pushed myself to my feet to run off the road. That's where I regained my vision. The bike was totaled, but thanks to my helmet and pure rage at being hit, I managed to literally walk away with only a concussion, nasty bruises, and a deep bone bruise on my left foot. No broken bones at all. It's been 8 months, and I'm still recovering from the concussion. My toe barely hurts, and the leg that took the impact has a dent in the muscle. But other than that, I'm fine. If I wouldn't have been wearing a helmet then, I have no doubt that I would be dead now. Wear your damn helmets, kids. When I had migraine with aura for the first time, I didn't know this was a thing, but it started with the worst migraine I ever had, followed by me losing my sight and becoming dizzy and feeling sick. I thought this was it. I told my sister that I thought I was going to die. She told me she has those migraines too, brought me a pill specifically for these migraines, and told me to sleep. She stayed with me until I woke up, just to be sure. Scary as hell. Migraines with weird symptoms are no joke. My first one had no pain, but I had an aura that blocked about 60% of my vision in one eye, and I lost the ability to put sentences together. I get 2 or 3 words out, and then blank. I didn't think I was gonna die, but I did wonder if I was having a stroke. I've since lost my speech one other time, but normally just the vision loss, and now I get the pain as well. Crazy what a variety of symptoms there is. Edit. Just thought I'd add my husband called an ambulance, and I was assessed by a doctor afterwards. But I'm definitely keeping an eye on any other weird trends. I do get pain too now. It's a bit more typical, and also I'm extremely irritable the day or two before one is coming, and wiped for a day or two after. 5th of October, 2019. Rear-ended by a dump truck. In a coma for 42 days, and now I'm paralyzed. So sorry to hear this. How are you? T2 and T3 vertebrae break. Cord crushed but not severed. Can't walk, but never say never. I have a great support system, so I'd say I'm lucky. Very recently, I had some kind of super fast virus or illness. Not sure what it was, but it basically started off with me feeling an incredible sense of impending doom, which I know is a sign for panic attacks. But I don't get panic attacks, and that feeling lasted until I started getting cold. Usually I'm way too warm, but this time I had to bundle up. That didn't work, and even getting into bed didn't help. I started shivering so hard my muscles began to tighten, and it was so painful, I had to jump into the shower to stop it. But before I could get in, I started getting lightheaded and had to lie down on the floor. It was like everything was spinning, and then I had the urge to defecate and vomit at the same time. Not being able to think clearly, I get into the tub and attempt to do both, just in case. At that moment, I couldn't stand or coordinate properly. Shivering, lightheaded, about to crap and puke. I thought to myself, I must be about to die, and this is how I'll be found. I ended up vomiting first, felt better enough to go defecate in proper place, and then showered to stop the shivering. After all of that, it was like nothing happened, and I was better again. I had a flu come on like that once. I felt like really bad panic attack, and I was confused because I hadn't had one even close to that bad in years. I was nauseous and shivering and hyperventilating and couldn't think straight, and I was still baffled at why I couldn't calm down. I finally just took some nausea medication and went to sleep. It wasn't until the next morning when I woke up, still feeling like garbage, for me to realize that I was actually physically sick. We had a lockdown at my school. Teacher didn't know what was going on. We heard a loud series of banging noises as we huddled in the corner, and we all started texting our friends and family goodbye. I remember my mom sending me photos of our cat to try and help me stay calm. I can only imagine how terrifying it must have been for her. I really thought I was going to die. As it turned out, there was no real threat. It was a stupid prank. I don't know what the banging sound was, but it was probably chairs moving. I imagine the kids who pulled the prank got into some deep manure. I hope, at least. I was on vacation this past summer. Was staying at a friend's house. When I started to notice my chest feeling tight. I started to get a fever and feel sick. I threw up and the feeling in my chest started to expand. I felt like I was going to explode, like a balloon being inflated inside me. I couldn't stand it. I literally felt like at any moment my heart would give out and my chest would explode. Went to the emergency. Turns out I had a really bad gallbladder attack. But on the drive to the hospital, I was telling my wife how much I love her, and that if she remarries, don't let it be anyone we currently know. Edit. Thanks for the award. It's my first ever. Didn't think my epic poop story and journal Damassery would get so popular. So this is funny, but also serious and disgusting, so I hope you have a strong stomach. I was sick, pooping my brains out. Intense cramps, blood, vomit, migraines for days. I got to the point I was crapping water. Crystal, clear water. I thought it was poisoned somehow. Severely dehydrated as every fluid I drank just went through me like a funnel or came back up in a minute later. I stuck to water because it wasn't as gross as curdled milk. I lived on the toilet. One day I was sitting there, sick as all hell, my new normal, or so I thought. I started physically heating up, heart palpitations, turned pale, fainted. Fell off the toilet, still defecating and vomiting. Fortunately, I felt just right so I didn't choke on my own vomit. When I came to, still feeling faint, I took in my surroundings, there on the floor. There's pink butt water on the wall, laundry basket, and half the floor seeping under me. There's vomit, basically just stomach acid and water at this point, on the other half of the floor, and all over half my head. I was home alone, my parents were working, and my brother was asleep, and he sleeps hard. A bomb could go off and he wouldn't know. Anyway, fluids just don't stop coming. I can't feel my legs, and I have no idea where my phone is, so I started shouting in between dry heaves and, well, Poseidon crawling out of my throat. Luckily, my neighbors heard me and called an ambulance. That ride was hell for every single one of us. My poor EMTs had to go home, shower, and I'm sure get tested for whatever it was I had, all while hoping they weren't gonna die. Fast forward to hospital, they give me meds to stop stomach spasms and anti-nausea medication, along with pain meds for my acid-ridden esophagus and sore muscles. After all the tests, turns out I had the flu, not the scary part, and no electrolytes. Cue back to the only having water after a point. On top of being severely dehydrated. The blood was just my pissed off colon. Lack of electrolytes can do some pretty scary crap, pun intended. I woke up in the morning to get ready for work. Meant to tie my shoe, and when I stood back up, the sight in my right eye was entirely gone. I did the usual thing of blinking and shaking my head a little, thinking maybe blood rushed to my head, but it wouldn't come back. I tried to explain to my partner that I was in trouble, but when I spoke, the wrong words kept coming out. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I definitely said tree instead of hospital at one point. I figured I was having a stroke or an aneurysm had ruptured. Or something brain tumory. Who knows? Whatever the case, I spent the entire ride to the hospital crying and telling my partner over and over that I loved him. I felt like I couldn't say it enough. Turns out I was preparing for my first migraine. Cluster headaches. I do not recommend them. And the migraine aura I get is blindness and aphasia. Because I'm a lucky girl, I guess. I got left in a hot tub as a kid, and the jets pushed me toward the center where I couldn't stand up. All I remember thinking was, someone's gonna have to do CPR on me, and that's gonna be real gross. My godfather noticed me and yanked me out there, while my mom was yelling at everyone asking who left me unattended in the hot tub. It was her. Hit a stopped car going over 65 miles per hour. Spent 2 years in a wheelchair. 6 months of that were learning to walk again. Honestly thought I was gonna die in the seconds before the impact. I can still clearly see the people in the car. The other traffic around us. Car was stopped to turn on a highway with no middle turning lane. I was the only one injured though, and I'm still sort of grateful for that, because I swear there was a kid in the backseat of the other car. I wasn't the driver, front seat passenger of a reckless driver. Either when I was moments away from drowning at 9 years old, I got into a stage of acceptance and overwhelming love and compassion. I accepted my fate, wished my family well, and was ready to embrace death. The next thing I knew, I was hacking up water on the side of the pool. No one helped me, no one got me out, and I don't remember how I got there. Or the day I discovered I have a severe allergy to codeine. Took some cocodamol for a headache that day, and by my first lesson in school, I couldn't breathe. Felt like my body was shutting down internally. When I had a panic attack and thought it was a heart attack. I did this too. Panic attack disorder as a result of severe food allergies. One day I had a panic attack so bad I was convinced I was dying from a heart attack and went to urgent care. They did an EKG on me, told me my heart was fine, and offered me some anxiety medication. That experience made me realize how badly I was doing mentally, so I went to therapy. Car accident a few months prior. Hit a stationary car on the highway going over 100 kilometers an hour. Wheels locked up due to slippery road. Thought it was over for me within the few seconds, but miraculously, both me and the other person got up with minor injuries. I got hit by a car and lost consciousness for a few seconds. I remember the moment I saw the car, the moment I got hit, and had 1,000 thoughts going through my head, like in a dream. And then there I am in the middle of the road. I woke up and ran to the side as fast as I could. Little did I know, I was running with a broken leg. I had an emotional trauma-induced seizure. Basically, your brain stops and reboots. I had this feeling of fading into a warmth. I saw a warm yellow light at first, but it all faded into a blackness. I remember thinking, I don't know what's happening, but I think I'm about to die. I had a moment of reflection as I fell. I felt like I was being held up by something, calmly telling me it may just be my time. I was 14. During childbirth with my second, it was so much different that time around, and I literally thought I was going to die from the pain, which is weird because the first time around, I was fine and didn't feel that way at all. As a child, I would go bodyboarding at the beach, but only on our summer vacations. Being the excited child I was, I would swim for hours, and one of those times, I got super warm out from the surf and sun. I swam out to catch a wave, and was sitting there waiting for a good one. I laid down, I shut my eyes. Even though it must have been only a few minutes, though it seemed longer. I drifted far from the beach, way past where waves broke. To my child mind, it seemed more than a football field, but I'm sure it was not that bad. Nevertheless, I couldn't swim well enough to be out of there alone. Thus, I promptly paddled in, scared as all get out. If I had fallen any more asleep, where would I have ended up? But this is the killer. Less than 10 miles up the coast, there was a shark attack hours earlier. I more so wondered if I would have been in one piece when I woke up. I took an edible before a flight from Portland to San Francisco. I proceeded to get very, very high, both metaphorically and literally. The plane begins its descent, and as it does this, it seems to take a steeper angle than usual, and I noticed the engine seemingly turn off or stop making as much noise. In my paranoid stoned mind, I became convinced that the engines had failed and were going to crash. I began composing my last text to send out to my family and friends, saving them all as drafts. And then, like 20 minutes later, I noticed that none of the flight attendants were worried at all and still smiling and joking. This is when I realized that the plane was not in fact crashing, and I'm just an idiot.
Thank you so much for watching. Please feel free to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a great rest of your day.